Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 2019 UL Innovative Education Award Applicant webinar. My name is Christiane Maertens. I'm the Program Director, and we are so thrilled that you were able to join us today to learn more about the application process. And we hope that this conversation will inspire you to submit the final application on Monday, March 12th. We have a really incredible group of speakers joining us today to talk more about the program, from things like why does it exist? Why should you take the plunge and apply? We're going to talk about things that surprise some of our award winners, some of the exciting collaborations that have come out of being an award winner. We're going to talk about the technicalities of applying and so much more. So on that note, I'd like to invite each of the speakers to introduce themselves. And I'm so happy to invite Deepa Shankar, our partner from Underwriters Laboratories. And Deepa, why don't you say a few things about you?
Sure. Thanks, Christiana. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is Deepa Shankar, and I work as Education Partnership Manager at Underwriters Laboratories. And we are a global safety science company based out of Chicago. And we'll talk more about, the award in just a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepa. And I'm going to kick it over to Jenn Page from Hurricane Island, one of our 2017 award winners.
Yeah, I'm Jenn Page. I'm the Director of Education at the Hurricane Island Center for Science and Leadership. And we're an environmental science education group that works on an island 12 miles off the coast of Maine. And thrilled to be here today.
Amazing. Thank you, Jen. And another 2017 award winner, Quilen. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Quilen Blackwell. I'm with the Chicago Eco House. We have the mission of using sustainability to alleviate inner city poverty, and we have 3 sites around Chicago and 1 in Detroit.
Great. Thank you, Quilen. And last but definitely not least, Kate Flinner from New Knowledge.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kate Flinner, and I have worked with New Knowledge and NAAEE and UL for several years on moderating the application process and the judging process. So we're behind the scenes corresponding with all of you on your applications if you have questions, and also we'll be in the room with the judges as an independent third party moderating that process. And you'll hear more about that in a few minutes.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kate. And I would also like to take a moment to acknowledge my fantastic colleagues from NAAEE, Chris Hutton, Program Manager, and Maisha Chowdhury, Program Coordinator. Thank you both so much for all the work you did behind the scenes to bring this webinar to life. So before we get started, please feel free to submit questions as our panelists are speaking throughout the webinar. The Q&A box can be found below at the bottom of your screen, and then we'll start to address those questions during our Q&A session. So with no further ado, let's get started. We're going to kick off by hearing from Deepa at Underwriters Laboratories to talk a little bit more about why UL does this and, what are some of the interesting things that they've learned from our winners and their perspective, of what their priorities are when thinking through the application review. So Deepa, why don't you go ahead and get us started?
Sure. Thanks, Christiana. Yeah, the UL Innovative Education Award is truly a first of its kind initiative. We designed it to invest in STEM organizations that do outstanding work in science, technology, engineering, and math, but with using the environment as a pathway to STEM. And the reason UL is investing in this program is because we are a global safety, science, and engineering company. So we are in about 65 different countries. We are a global organization. There are about 15,000 employees worldwide, but majority of us are based out of the US and Canada. And so we decided to focus on these 2 countries for now with the UL Innovative Education Award. We are a small but mighty team of 5 to 6 people in our education department. So we don't necessarily have the bandwidth to create and manage programs that really focuses on STEM. And that's one of the big reasons why we invest and recognize organizations who do this, because by recognizing and supporting these kinds of innovative programs across the country, we are hoping to make positive impacts within the local communities. So with the support of this award, these programs can then successfully scale up their efforts, potentially and hopefully using the award money. So that's part of the reason behind why we are doing the UL Prize. And one of the things Christiane just mentioned was about the past winners. You know, we started this program, I believe, back in 2015, 2016, and we've had an amazing array of winners. You know, they're organizations from all parts of the country in US and Canada. They are both big and small. We've had national organizations like Future City, which is an organization, that Discover E is the parent company. They are the folks that created the whole National Engineering Week. And so they are more of a national organization. And then we have an amazing organization like Chicago Eco House, who are based out of Chicago, and they are a much, much smaller organization. So we are truly proud of our organizations who are winners because of the fact that they do some amazing work in their own communities, regardless of the size. And that's part of the reason why we are encouraging organizations of all sizes to apply for this award. And let's see, Christiane, did you want me to touch upon the criteria as well? Let me go ahead and say, the one thing. Oh yeah, no worries at all. No worries. Yeah. So one of the things we would love for you, as you're listening to the next, 45, 50 minutes as we talk through the whole thing, we'd love for you to get a better understanding of the award itself, how this has worked for our winners, and how it can potentially help your organization to really scale up. That is the hope. We hope that the support we provide through the funding, that you're able to scale up. But we would strongly encourage you to go to the criteria page under awards. If you go to applications, you will find that the criteria is listed out. Basically you have to be an organization of a certain size, doing STEM work in US and Canada, working with students K through 12, and also having the program budget cannot exceed $3 million in a calendar year, and things like that. So there are some simple criteria that are in place already, but we'd love for you to look at it. From a UL perspective, the couple of things that we really look for in our award winners is innovation. That's why we have that in the title of the award itself, the UL Innovative Education Award. We want to see what's innovative or what's unique about your programs. So when you do the applications, we truly hope you can tell that story. Please identify or help us see what is unique about your programs, or what are you doing differently that stands out. I think that is a huge piece for us. The other thing we also look for among the award winners is just overall, besides being innovative, how are you impacting your communities? The whole citizenship piece, how are you engaging your students? What are you doing for the community? How are the students learning? Those are some of the topics that we look at as we look at award winners. And once you are selected as an award winner, we have an amazing family and group of winners that we come together from time to time. We work with each other, collaborate really well, and learn from each other as well. We share best practices. So that's a whole other benefit that you will get once you join and become an award winner. But as far as criteria is concerned, besides the ones that are listed on the website, which we would strongly encourage you to take a look, we definitely look at innovation. We look at how focused you are in STEM, how it ties in with the environment, and how you engage the youth in your through your program. So those are all some really important criteria for us. And with that, I'll stop and I'll turn it back to you, Christiane.
Great, thank you, Deepa. And you made a really great point about the $3 million. And this is a question that comes up to us very often. To clarify, let's say you're at a university, but you have a program that you operate within the university. If your program budget is under $3 million, then you are eligible for the award. So it's not the university's program or overall budget, but it's your specific program budget, just to clarify on that piece, because that is a question we get a lot. So thanks, Deepa. And now it'd be great to hear from some of our winners with Jenn and Quilen. And Jenn, I would invite you to tell your story first, if you don't mind, about how and why you decided to apply for the award.
Yeah, it was actually interesting because I got an email about being a desk reviewer, just one of those like broadcast email on a listserv. And I applied to be a desk reviewer because thinking about the actual application, I wasn't sure how well we were going to fit and how much time it was going to take. And so it was easier to be a desk reviewer for this first year and then worry about applying later. And then I got the email from Christiane saying, why the heck are you applying to be a desk reviewer? You should be applying to the actual award. And so I jumped into that with just a week before the actual application deadline. I learned to love coffee, but it was really just hanging out at a coffee house and doing some good work there and going back and forth with my team. It really took 2 to 3 solid days of work just because I was working with a group of people that I had to keep going back and forth with. And it really was an amazing process that allowed me to think more about our program in general and in different ways than what most grant applications would have you do. The questions just really had us look at our program through a different light, explain what we were doing, really celebrate our program. And that was invaluable for me in terms of twisting my brain around kind of this new way of celebrating what we were already doing rather than thinking about trying to put in a grant for something we wanted to do in the future. So the award process itself was extremely helpful, and even just the feedback that we got, it was amazing to have the feedback throughout the process about kind of how others were viewing what we were doing, thinking about our program in new ways, and then really thinking also about the other applicants and their concept of like applying and possibly not getting the award. They still got feedback from the reviewers. And so regardless of whether we had gotten the award or not, having that feedback and being able to go back into it in a future year, really thinking about how can we improve what we're doing and how can we improve our application. It was just an amazing process to go through.
Great, thanks, Jenn. And I would be so curious if you might have any advice about not only to the applicants, but what was it about the process, this application process for you that felt different than other award/grant applications?
Yeah, I think that it made me realize the kind of the value of the work that we were doing. I know that you've already mentioned, Deepa, about the different sizes of the organizations, and that was something I was concerned about in applying as well, seeing something like Future City winning. But the value that was put on us as an organization that was making a deeper impact in a smaller community was great. In terms of thinking about the questions and kind of advice for applying, I would really suggest that people just go in and rather than trying to pull stuff from past grant applications, as much as possible, just sit down and write about your program through all those different lenses, because the material that you get from that is really going to help you think differently about your program and really give a much truer view to the reviewers about what you're already doing.
Right, great, thanks, Jenn. And one last point, just not to drive it home too hard, but you did say that you accomplished this in a week, and you had a lot of different cooks in the kitchen, for lack of a better term, to get this thing through. So now that we are less than a week out, and let's say that we have people on this call right now going, "Oy, I don't know, I just got 6 days left to do it," what would your advice be?
Do it, do it, do it. I think what you'd be able to put together, again, getting any feedback this year, worst case scenario, if you don't actually win, the feedback you're going to get is going to be fantastic. And I really do think you'll hear from Quilen too, especially if you're just doing it yourself, you can really knock it out pretty quickly. And it's totally worth it just to be kind of part of the process.
Great, thank you, Jen. Okay, now, Quilen, I'd love to invite you because you have had a very different experience with your application process, and obviously you're a very different organization, so would love to hear from EcoHouse's perspective as well.
Oh yeah, thanks, Christiana. So yeah, we are definitely not like everyone else, I would say, that's in the network. So when we applied, our budget was probably around like $10,000 to $12,000. It's just me and my wife doing programs out of our house, and we definitely thought we did not qualify for something as like big and prestigious as this UL award. It actually took a friend of mine at the Chicago Botanical Garden talking me into it 3 or 4 times before we actually thought that, you know, it was worth our time to even apply. So like with our program, we never really looked at it as being an eSTEM program. I mean, honestly, I didn't even hear about eSTEM until this award, because our focus was more on, you know, entrepreneurship development, and just because of the context of we were doing our program, you know, here on the south side of Chicago, we were just using environmental practices just because it just made business sense, as well as, you know, it was sustainable. But once we actually started the application, you know, it really helped us to really think through our model and really flesh out what, you know, was innovative about it. So I think like, you know, when they say that this is an innovation award, they really mean that, and they don't discriminate based on your, you know, your track record, the size of your organization, how prestigious you may be in the field. They are really looking for novel ideas. And, you know, so once we won the award, I think for us, it more affirmed our model that we actually had something that was pretty different, and, you know, that adds value, not just to, you know, eSTEM, but just to the larger field of education. And then for us is also a big badge of approval that helped to propel us to where we are today with, you know, 4 sites in 2 different cities, and, you know, serving over 70 students a week, you know, through our programs.
That's awesome, Quilen. That was just great to hear from you that way. So you would encourage then the applicants, even though they are smaller organizations, to not let them intimidate them and to still go ahead and apply?
Yeah, I mean, I think like, if I were in, you know, someone else's shoes, I would probably take some time internally and really be honest with yourselves about, you know, what is it about your program that's innovative and unique. And I think, because that's like the process we had to go through. Like, we had to really go through and think about like, what is it that's different, that really isn't out there, that separates us from everybody else once we actually got down to, you know, writing the application. And, you know, for us, it was really the community development and entrepreneurship aspect of using eSTEM and really doing it in an applied way. So for everyone else, it could be different. It could be, you know, the kind of students you're working with. It could be, you know, different academic models you're applying. It could be the, you know, the context you're working in. So, you know, for us, you know, our program is, you know, right here in the neighborhood on the blocks here on the south side of Chicago. So it's really a neighborhood-based program. So there's a lot of different things that can make what you're doing unique and innovative. But, you know, once you really identify that difference maker, you know, just really focusing and tailoring your application towards that.
Great. Thank you, Quilen. And Quilen, you know, you and Jen are really good examples of organizations, representing organizations who have really taken advantage of the network in addition to the funds. Can you talk a little bit about how you've taken advantage of, you know, the collaborations and the professional development and the ability to connect with other people like Jen?
Yeah, so we're very aggressive networkers, and, you know, we really like to hustle. So you know, we pretty much looked at, so on the website, you can kind of see, you know, all the different organizations and their backgrounds. And, you know, we're very intentional about trying to find organizations that were a good fit for like what we're doing, or, you know, ways we could find partnerships with them. So, you know, with Jen, you know, we were talking to her about their program, and she mentioned that they have they're doing like some sort of sea rocket project. And since we have a 3D printing program, we're kind of looking for different ways we could really open up opportunities to make different parts, just to not only give our kids experience creating different things, but, also potentially creating or opening up new markets where our kids could develop products and, basically expand their youth enterprise. So that's how we started our partnership with Hurricane Island, regarding the Sea Rocket project, where we're designing a 3D printed mold for the Sea Rocket that's going to be, I believe it's going to be deployed this summer.
That's amazing. Jen, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, the whole connection piece with Quilen was awesome because of these networking events that ULIEA brings all of the winners together. That was really where Quilen and I started being able to talk about ways that we could interact, and then that just continued in conversations after we left at that point. And when we approached Quilen about possibly working with the Sea Rocket project, it was interesting to think about the idea of the Sea Rocket as a data collector that goes down in the ocean, and yet we were connecting to a Chicago-based program to help us work on an ocean-based invention. And it really was a great conversation, and working with his students as well as the students here on the coast of Maine who are actually using kelp to create bioplastics to use in the mold that Quilen students are creating. So really trying to create those authentic connections where the kids can have ownership over a part of the project and really feel like their work is making a difference. And the fact that they're connecting across the country just increases their level of commitment and interest. And it's just been great being able to create that connection with the two organizations.
Thank you both. It's such a fantastic and unique collaboration, and we all at the program have loved watching it come to life. And I think one of the things that we also want to remind everybody who's thinking about applying is that while this award is a cash contribution to help you continue your good work, one of the things that UL is very committed to is building this cohort and this alumni network, which really allows for opportunities to foster these kind of relationships. And that's what makes this program so special, because now we're in our 5th year. We'll soon have 25 organizations who exist within this organization, or within this program as alumni. Hopefully that might be 1 or 5 of you on this call. And it's just really exciting, and it's a real testament to UL's commitment to wanting to ensure that this program is not just a one-time exchange of money, but that there's a long-term sustainable opportunity to help you grow as an organization. And we learn so much from you as well. So on that note, I think it's time to start talking about the application process. And Kate Flinner and her team are just fantastic in helping bring this process to life. So Kate, would love to hear from you. How many applications do we typically receive? And what are some of the missteps that people may make that if they just had done something a little bit differently, they would have been more likely to have been granted the award?
Yes, great. Those are wonderful questions. And I have watched this program grow over the years, and we've seen anywhere from 85 to 115 applicants from year to year. And we see a lot of returning applicants as well, which is exciting for us because they're kind of building their work and we're seeing them grow from year to year. So that means the competition is pretty stiff from year to year, but it doesn't mean that you don't get your due attention. We have at least 3 judges review each application. And as Jen was saying, this year we especially have the opportunity to give every last person or every last applicant feedback. So for people who reach the first rounds, that means you'll get written feedback from at least 3 judges, if not more, if you reach the semifinals round. And then those who make it to the finals round and maybe don't win a cash prize, those people get an in-depth feedback session with one of our judging moderators. And then Everyone who wins an award, of course, gets to hear exactly how, judges were talking about their application and what exactly they found innovative and want to see the rest of the field emulate. So when we see the applications, one of the biggest missteps that I see from year to year is that people think of, sometimes we're so stuck in this mindset of we're applying for grants, we need to scrounge up this federal money or this foundation money, but this is really a cash award for the terrific things you're already accomplishing. So that means programs you have already done for at least a year or two and start to gather some evidence around what's working and what you want to do or expand in the future. So that is one thing I would just make sure is very clear in your applications is, what have you already done really well? This is a place to really, toot your own horn and articulate what is different, what is excellent, and what is really working well with your program. And then another thing I would like to say is there's a part of the application that asks you to think about what you would do if you are awarded, receive an award. And that is, there's no preference for how you answer that question. It's really, and there's no points awarded for that question in the judging. It's really to help judges think about how you foresee the future of this program growing. So judges are often looking for something that can really help the program grow in a sustainable way. And that might be, staff need chairs in the office, or they need to think about transportation for the program participants and invest in like a van or some kind of mode of transit to get people to the program sites. You could be very creative with that section of the application, but really think about what can take your program to the next level, not so much in a program development way, but also in a logistical way. Yes. Is there anything I missed? I mean, you all on the phone call have seen applications and written applications. Any of the other panelists want to jump in here too?
So, Kate, I would love to also hear from you. A lot of times in these kind of applications, there is an expectation that there should be a huge increase in your impact and from a metric standpoint. And I think it's really safe to say that we've really seen the spectrum of, organizations who have had very deep impact with a smaller number audience and those that have a wider impact with a larger audience. And I think it's really important to help talk about that as well and how that scale is different for everybody.
Yeah, that's a great point. And that is a conversation we have with judges every year, is thinking about what is the balance between this program's reach of, how many youth come through the door versus how long are youth working on a specific project or coming into contact with the program and being a part of the, like some sort of evaluation or assessment. So judges are really thinking very carefully about that. And it's not, as you can see from Jenn and Quilen's programs, it's not the biggest audience reach that always wins the awards. Jenn and Quilen are a testament to that, deep impact with a smaller community is really important to judges as well. And they balance that with all the other priorities on the priorities page of thinking about what is the innovation versus what is working really well and what might be, something borrowed from a tried and true model that has like some little tweak that's innovative and works for a specific community, or even further in that line, what is innovative for a specific community. Rural Idaho is different than the south side of Chicago, and what is important and what really speaks to the needs and aspirations of those communities in connecting them to E-STEM opportunities.
Right. Great, thanks, Kate. And any more thoughts, Deepa, from you when you start to think about the UL lens, and you've sat in sort of all phases of the judging, and what I think there's because it's a relatively in-depth application process. There might be just that initial barrier of thinking, oh God, I don't want to get into this because it's a lot, and if we don't win, is it worth it? So I would love to hear from you, Deepa, why you would continue to encourage people to apply, even if they think they just have the slightest chance at being eligible.
Yeah, absolutely, Christiana. The reason I would definitely encourage folks to apply, I mean, I know the process seems a little intimidating, but we've been very careful in how we have crafted the application. New Knowledge has done an amazing job with that. They have taken feedback every year from those who have won the awards, as well as the top 10, just to see how we can tweak it and make the process better. And we are truly confident that in the last 5 years, that the process has been tweaked to the point where these questions are very deliberate. We want to learn a little bit more about certain aspects of your program. So even if it seems intimidating, I would say, get a jump on it. Also, if you notice all the winners from the past years, we know them well enough I can almost speak to them saying they would be happy to answer any questions you have, or reach out to Kate, in New Knowledge. You can reach out to any one of us. If you have questions on, how should I answer this particular question, or what should we do differently to position ourselves? So we can certainly guide you through that process. But once you get started, I have a feeling you'll do just fine. And you heard from Jenn and Quilen and everybody else before me who said not to worry about the size, about, we want to hear more about how you're doing, what you're doing, why is it unique, what kind of an impact it's having in your community, because we know that different aspects are different from depending on which geography you're coming from. So for example, we recognized a program called Tracks based out of Ontario, Canada. And especially one of the main reasons was because of their audience. They were reaching out to the local folks there, to the local First Nation communities. So we really appreciated how they were getting that environmental education to those students in some of the remote locations. Same with our winner from Newfoundland in Canada. They were, located pretty remotely, yet they made it seem like their location was this perfect hub for kids to be learning from the ocean. Their classes were very unique in the way they were structured. And so we found that extremely innovative. So we know that depending on which geography you're in, things are going to be different. So we want to hear you tell that story. We'd love to hear how your students are being engaged. And if you're working predominantly with teachers, who then work with the students, that's perfectly fine too, because that's one way of getting the programs into the community. So we want to hear that aspect as well. And when in doubt, you have all of us here that you can reach out to and shoot us a quick email or give us a call. Just ask, what should you do differently, or what can you do, or how to answer certain questions. We are here to help with that. But please know that we are looking for folks like you. So send us your information. We know that we love to see links to your website. If you have specific stories, anecdotes that can be, I know there's room for that in the application where you can put that in as well. And we'd love to hear about that too.
Thanks, Deepa. Yes, and it's no joke. We literally are open for all and any questions 24/7, especially in this last week. So speaking of that, we have some questions that are being queued up in the Q&A section, and we also had some questions that were sent to us in advance. So Chris, I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to you to help facilitate this session.
Hello. Sorry about that. Hello, my name is Chris Hutton. I work directly with ULIEA and NAAEE. So I'm going to start with some questions that came in advance. And then I can see a few of you are already queuing in some questions in the Q&A box. So we'll make sure to try to address those if they are not already addressed. So first off, There's a question, I'll hit a couple that may have been touched upon just to offer an opportunity if anything else needs to be said. So I'm going to start with some questions that look like they may be geared more towards Kate Flinner, towards judging facilitation. One question which we've talked about some just now with Deepa and some in the answers in the Q&A regarding teacher programs. Are teacher programs encouraged to apply for this award? Did you want to say anything else to that, Kate? I think we've addressed this on some level, but you might have some thoughts as well.
Yes, we have had teacher programs apply before, and specifically those that are providing eSTEM resources to teachers as a way to scale up the reach of these resources and a way of thinking about eSTEM. So in an application like that, I would be very clear about how the end user is benefiting from those resources when you are working with teachers and indirectly young people through them. Deepa, anything to add to that?
No, you said it, Kate. That's exactly right. If they can show the connection to the students or the end users or how they're benefiting, that'll be perfect. But we would encourage them to apply even though they're working with teachers directly. That's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the next question, do you fund existing, new, or scaling up of existing programs? And I know you've spoken to this some, but Kate, if you'll just stress again where our focus lies.
So yes, as I said, we are really looking to recognize successful and excellent and innovative programs that are already successful and reaching their target audiences. We do pay attention to how judges consider how a program might use the funds if they receive an award, but it's really to recognize existing work.
That's right, Caitlin.
Sorry.
Oh,
please.
yeah, go ahead, Christiane.
No, you go, Deepa, sorry.
Okay, I was just going to add to that, Kate, and you said you're exactly right. There are no specific restrictions on how the award funds are used, but the funds are to recognize the work that you've already done. So that's where I think we are fundamentally different from grants, where grants come with certain expectations on how the funds need to be used. Here really we are just recognizing the work that you have done, but we are also hoping that by giving you this award, you'd be able to scale up or use it in ways that will strengthen your programs. So that is the intent of the award. So the simple answer to that question is no, we don't have any restrictions per se on the award funds.
And just to one more point of clarification is we do ask that you send in quarterly reports. We do send in a template. They're very brief reports, but to highlight how you are spending the money, because that helps us continue to build the narrative of the impact this program has had.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Christiane.
Sure.
Okay, thank you so much. Our next question, and we're still with Kate until I say otherwise, define community in making impact in their communities. So I know in the application there's a question around how they make an impact in their communities. Can you speak to what we're looking for in the term community in that instance?
Well, we really look for your organization to define your community in a thoughtful way. There are several places to really speak to that aspect of your work in the application. There's a multiple choice question that, very bluntly asks, like, are you working on the city level or state level? But then you can talk about your audience in more qualitative terms elsewhere. And what we're looking for is for a sense of how you understand your program is meeting the needs or helping the community reach their potential in the eSTEM fields. So it's, we are all nonprofits too, in a way, and we recognize that your audience cannot be everyone all the time. And so we're looking for that thoughtfulness in approaching and articulating who your community is and the users of your program. Anything to add to that, Deepa or Christiane?
No, nothing from my end. Thank you, Kate.
That was perfect. Thanks, Kate.
Okay, so next question. Similar to the earlier teacher program question, do programs that provide direct service for students tend to get priority?
Students, I'm wondering if that question is students, like formal students and informal student setting. Do you know, Chris?
It sounds to me more the concern is, do programs that are directly servicing that K-12 audience, are they the ones that are getting priority?
No, definitely there is no priority among informal or formal. But one other point of clarification is that in case this question came from a school, like schools, elementary schools, middle schools, high schools are not eligible to apply. But if it's in a program that collaborates with the local middle school or high school or elementary school, and they are serving that community, they absolutely are eligible to apply, but by no means do they take priority. It's sort of whoever is doing the best programming, whether it's in an informal or formal setting.
Excellent. And one last question for Kate potentially, or this might be more Deepa. Do you try to spread your grants around the country, or does that matter?
We would like to spread it out to different parts, but it does not matter. So for example, last year in 2018, we had, was it 2017? Actually, it was 2017. We had two, you know what? Was it 2017? Yeah, we had two winners from Chicago. We had the Chicago Botanic Garden and we had Chicago Eco House. So, and they both happen to be from Chicago. So it should not matter at all whether they come from the same location or not. But we truly try to look at it very specifically to the application, to the work they're doing, the organization is doing, and to the programs that you're showcasing. But it does not matter if you're, from a certain location or geography.
Okay, and then Deepa, another question specifically for you is about the money usage, and I know we've talked about the unrestricted nature of that money. Can you use the money for program improvements, and what are you looking for in terms of reach, number of students?
The award money, definitely is for recognizing the work that the program is already doing. But once you're done, and if you win the award, we don't have specific expectations on what you should do with the award funds. But that said, like Christiane had mentioned, we do have quarterly reports where we'd like to hear about the progress you're making or what you're doing with the program. But we are not saying, okay, now that you won the award, you have to go out and reach 1,000 more students. No, we don't have that kind of expectations. We don't put any kind of number on, on reach. We just know that we want to support the program that you're already doing and strengthen it. So we don't have that kind of expectations. And that's what distinguishes this award program from other grants, I guess.
Okay. Well, we have a number of questions pouring in the Q&A, some of which we have starts of answers. In fact, Jenn Page has been doing a wonderful job going through and trying to answer as many questions as she can. I want to touch on some of these, whether they've been answered or not, in just this open format so everyone can benefit. So let's first start. There's a question: we're a kids' child science museum with limited environmental education programs. However, we are interested in improving our sustainability and expanding our environmental programs. Is it worth applying if we don't have a strong history of environmental ed?
And Jen, I say you just tell the group what you told attendees.
Exactly. Jen came back with a fantastic response. I feel like we should just cut and paste it and use that for everything.
I'm glad it was helpful. But basically, I think it was just saying that you'd want to make sure that the program actually is in existence already. It's not something that you're planning on doing in the future. But then one of the things that I really appreciated when I was thinking about eSTEM in my application was the broadness of the definition of environment. And they have it on the website, but it's not just not just like habitat and species conservation, but even just the built spaces and urban and suburban and rural. So with a children's science museum, I would think that there would be parts of your program that already apply. You just have to think about the different lens that you're putting eSTEM in.
Yeah, and I wonder too, if Deepa could say something about, why UL is taking this kind of expansive approach to environment.
Yeah, we as a company, being a global safety science company, obviously science, technology, engineering, and math is a very important to us. STEM education is extremely important, from a company standpoint, because we are a science and engineering company. But the reason we put so much emphasis on environment is because we truly believe and understand that, everything we do in today's day and life centers around the environment and the world we live in. Whether it's outside environment or whether it's a built environment, sometimes some of the best programs happen indoors. One year, one of our grand prize UL Innovative Education Award winners was NY Sunworks, New York Sunworks. Their whole program on hydroponics and aquaponics won the award that year because they truly have found very innovative ways of greening up the schools, especially in high rises and in areas where there are complete, deserts, and there are not necessarily access to vegetables and such. So theirs is completely built environment, but we really love the innovative ways at which they tackled that particular problem. So that problem solving piece was very unique to them. So we love that piece of it. So the environment is something that's really important to UL. Whether it's outdoors or indoors, if your program can show that you're finding innovative solutions to problems, or you're finding ways that you're tackling a certain community problem by doing this particular program, that will make for a great case for your application.
Excellent. Thank you, Deepa.
Yeah.
Next question, kind of a technical question. Are there ways to include examples of material, e.g. web pages, video, in the application, or to include images in support, to support the ideas being presented?
Yes, yes to all of the above. There is a section specifically for photos, because judges really like to see, your work in action. And then at the end, there is a space to incorporate something else that speaks to your work. It can be, a link to a video, or some kind of promotional material, or something else entirely. The only thing that I would caution is that judges really aren't looking for you to develop something new for this application in terms of promotional material. So use something existing. As you can tell, we have a range of organizations with a wide range of budgets who apply and who go on to win. So you don't need to do anything new outside of putting your ideas on paper in the application.
Okay, thank you, Kate. I think we have a couple more questions that have answers that need to be shared with the group, and then I want to go to the open questions to make sure everyone gets addressed. First off, our programs within a university, we're not funded by the university and have our own operating budget, but we use the university's EIN when applying for our grants. Are we still qualified?
Yes, you are. As long as you are able to, as long as you have your budget is below 3 million annually, and also as long as you are not providing the, the academic credit formal education structure for students at the university, you are definitely eligible then.
Okay. And here's one about the award money, but not our usual question. This is more about timing. Is there a time limit on when the award money should be spent, i.e. within a year of the award? And maybe Deepa, maybe you could speak to that from a UL perspective?
Sure. Sure, Chris. And no, there is no time limit on what you should do with the award money, but the quarterly calls, we do host a call once every quarter where we bring all the winners together, and we listen to the progress that you're making through with your programs, and we'd love to hear what are some of the things that your organization is doing in that year. But to answer that specific question of whether the award money has to be used that year, no, it does not have to.
Okay. And let's go to some of the open questions. Can you describe the difference between direct impact, indirect impact, and promotional impact audiences in the audience question? So Kate?
Yes, there is a little pop-up that tries to give examples of how to think about those questions. And I'm just, Chris, could you repeat the different types of audience?
Yes.
I'm looking for the written version.
First up, direct impact audience.
Okay, so that is those are the people who attend your programs directly, or are, you know, who you would consider being part of your, like, your direct audience, people who are there for your program or an event or some other format that your program takes.
And what about your indirect impact?
So those are the people, an example of this might be if you are working with students to develop some kind of clean water system for their community. Those people could be the people who benefit from that clean water system. Or in another way, you could, if you're working with students on how to you know, work on climate change issues in your community, it could be the people who, you know, the families or the educators who are working with students in other ways, who hear from and kind of receive that benefit through the participants who are directly a part of your program.
Okay, or for instance, if you're the trainer model, perhaps the students of those teachers you've trained, that would be another indirect audience. Would that be accurate?
Exactly, yes.
Okay, and then what about promotional impact audience?
Those are the people who we recognize many organizations send out newsletters that, you know, try to help the community in different ways. And those are the people who might not be attending events, but who might follow you on social media or receive your newsletter or some other format of communication that speak to your mission, but might not necessarily have that direct contact with your program.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much there. We have a few more questions here. In the application, we ask what our target, sorry, it just jumped on me. So let me see. In our application, you ask what our target audience might be. Do you hope for a realistic, we can scale up to X in a year answer there, or our big vision, such as we want to reach every child in the city in 10 years?
I would say both. Let us know your near-term aspiration and then also your long-term goals.
Okay.
And I think it's also important to acknowledge that if you don't reach that, that's okay. We're not going to be like, oh, you need to give us your money back. So, but it is good to see sort of what you're aiming for.
All right. Thank you, Christiana, and thank you, Kate. Let's see, next question. Our programs teach environmental education to low-income schools and families, but we also teach outdoor education, outdoor recreation. How do we balance these two topics so our application is more appealing? In other words, do we concentrate only on our science-based programs in the application?
First is the the environmental education ones.
And versus the outdoor education,
Yes.
which in some ways is outdoor recreation.
I don't know if I could rightly answer that question. I think I would recommend going with what you feel is the strongest representation of E-STEM innovation, whether or not that's a mix of those two aspects of your work, or if that's one or the other, you know, weighting them a little bit more.
And do you mind if I jump in for a moment on this question?
Please.
I actually get a lot of questions about the applications that come directly to my inbox, so I have to field some of these questions. And the one thing I would like to stress that I think Kate mentioned as well is that we cannot predict where innovation comes from. And as such, I would always hesitate to say, oh, keep it focused solely on your science aspect, because the innovation might come from something that we never saw coming, that we didn't expect, that you might not directly tie to that. One of our winners in 2015 was looking at connections between Western science and indigenous knowledge and where those two came together in the environment. And had they restricted it just to Western science, they might have missed out on the innovation. So I don't know how the outdoor recreation or outdoor activities interplay, but if they're part of the innovation of your project, I think you'd have to examine that and come up with what lens to tell your story.
Thank you, Chris. That's a great comment. And I really hope that it's clear from the website that there's, like, just to add to your point, there's no type of ULIEA program. We don't have a certain type. We are really open to any kind of organization or program who is working on these ideas in new and creative ways.
Okay, well, thank you, Kate. I'm gonna keep on going with the questions, try to get as many of these answered as we can in the time remaining. And I know we are running out. Follow up to the university question. I requested an application with our university as the applicant organization, but do you want the program to be the applicant, or does this matter?
I would make it if you're part of a university, I would certainly make it the program as the applicant.
All right, so you would, well, so how I understand, you would list the organization, would you list the university as the organization, and then the program is listed as well? Is that what you're saying, or how would you do that?
I actually, could that person, maybe this is also a good time to say, if you have really technical questions like this, that I would have to look at the exact questions on the application form to field properly, please email us at uliea@newknowledge.org.
Well, Kate, there is a chat window where you can put to all panelists and attendees. Could you type
Yes.
the address in there? And there's a question there about registering as a nonprofit. So just to answer that, oftentimes there are nonprofit programs that then operate underneath a university umbrella. So a university itself cannot apply, correct me if I'm wrong, Kate, but if it's a nonprofit operating underneath the university umbrella, then it is eligible.
Correct, and many universities are registered as nonprofits as well, so that is a kind of niche category that is eligible, assuming the budget is $3 million US or below.
Okay, and then we're thinking about applying to scale up our local program to a national level. Could a model like this be considered as a strong application if we provide evidence to the need and how we will support this type of expansion? Did you catch that, Kate?
No, I didn't. Could you repeat?
No problem.
Thank you.
So we're thinking about applying to scale up our local program to a national level. Could a model like this be considered as a strong application if we provide evidence to the need and how we will support this type of expansion?
Oh, I would say just make sure you are focusing on what you have already achieved. There's one single question about how you might scale up if you were to receive an award, and also, you know, what you want your audience to be in the future. So it's really about what you've already achieved, and you can talk about your aspirations and how you might use the funds, but really think of this as a recognition award for what you've already accomplished.
Okay, next question, and Christiane, just chime in if you have to cut me off.
Well, yeah, I think, Chris, let's go through one more question, and just to be mindful of everyone's time, we can answer everything else offline.
Okay, well, this is the last question, I believe, that does not have at least one typed answer. So let's get this last open question here. If we are already collaborating with an institution partially supported by their university, but your organization is a strictly nonprofit partner responsible for self-funding, are we still eligible?
That is a great example of a program that should contact us at that uliea@newknowledge.org email, because I want to make sure I understand all the aspects of your question before answering.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
Great. Oh, well, thank you to everybody on today's panel. We really appreciate you joining us, and to everybody who tuned in for the podcast for this year's applicant webinar. And please, please, please do not hesitate to reach out to us with any questions. And we really hope to see your applications next Monday. Thank you all so much, and I hope you have a wonderful week.
Thanks, everyone.